The bloated alien generals laughed when the humans showed up for war. Their laughs died when they saw humanity's secret fleet unleashed. There were 400 warships from every corner of the galaxy parked around the Epsilon Eridani star. Each sleek alien ship bristled with weapons, gamma turrets, plasma cannons, and phase-shifting torpedo tubes ready to fire on command. The generals and admirals were confident, smug, after all their thousand-year-old empires had conquered worlds in every spiral arm of the Milky Way. And here they were gathered to talk about a minor nuisance called humanity, a lone human. Freighter captain had hijacked precious ore from the Zorian 2 solar cycles ago. The nerve and upstart human smuggler made off with some crystals from the Calarian. The Cheek and the Varian complained of illegal human colonies on their border worlds. The Gaul, the alien war council, gored at the audacity of these humans. They all agreed humanity was a primitive species, just starting to tiptoe into a galactic arena. It didn't understand nothing more than an irritating gnat to be swatted away at their leisure. Meanwhile, in a top-secret bunker on Earth, the Global Defense Council watched a hacked transmission of the alien meeting. Admiral Reeves and his officers listened stone-faced as the extraterrestrials mocked and derided humanity, but their secret fleet was ready. Their revenge would be brutal and decisive. All they needed was the right moment to strike, without the element of surprise unleashed at the perfect time. The human race would burn, but the arrogant alien empires were about to find out what happened when they provoked a lesser species one too many times. High Commander Zorth stood on the bridge of his Venian dreadnought, the Conquest, as it hung in orbit over the human colony on Titan 17. He tapped the viewport with a clawed finger as he examined the small primitive settlement below. Pathetic Zorth growled, "These humans dare to establish an outpost in our space. I will make an example of them." All ships commence orbital bombardment. The Conquest shuddered as its massive plasma cannons unleashed hellfire on the human structure. Streams of superheated energy rained down on the colony, vaporizing buildings and sending debris flying. Explosions blossomed across the once tranquil landscape. On the planet's surface, the human colonists scrambled for cover in their bunkers and underground shelters. The ground shook with each impact, the very foundations of their colony cracking. Under the onslaught, Governor Adams gripped the command console in the colony's command center. Dust fell from the ceiling with each blast. "Get the planetary defense cannons online. We have to hold them off until help arrives." The human guns opened fire, sending streams of projectiles and missiles up at the Enlaxan ships, but the alien shields shimmered, absorbing the comparatively primitive weapons with ease. Zorth chuckled as he watched the pitiful defense begin. The ground invasion crushed these impudent humans underfoot. Drop ships loaded with Venian troops and war machines descended on Titan 17, disgorging their deadly cargo. The soldiers charged forward, energy rifles blazing, cutting down the outmatched human defenders. Hover tanks glided over the broken terrain, their focused beam weapons slicing through structures like a scythe. In the bunkers, human soldiers fought back with grim determination. They took cover behind hastily erected barricades, firing back at the advancing aliens with rifles and portable missile launchers. Some even engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat, using vibro blades and shock batons to battle the physically imposing Venian. But for every alien they failed, 5 more took their place. The human life vest buckled and collapsed under the relentless assault. Bunkers were breached and overrun. Soldiers fell, blood staining the churned Earth colony. Structures burned and toppled. Governor Adams watched in despair as the Venian troops marched through the colony's broken gates. The command center's doors shook as the aliens began to break through. She drew her sidearm, preparing to make a final stand. Suddenly, alarms blurred on the Conquest bridge. Zorth spun to face his sensor officer. "Report, High Commander, a massive fleet just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. They're human ships, but I've never seen configurations like these before." "What impossible?" Zorth snailed. "Bring it on screen." The view screen filled with the image of a massive human armada, easily dwarfing the Venlayan invasion force. At the fleet's head was a colossal dreadnought bristling with guns and emblazoned with the insignia of Earth. On the dreadnought's bridge, Admiral Reeves rose from his command chair. "All ships open fire. Protect our people and show these alien bastards what happens when they mess with humanity." The human fleet surged forward, their guns lighting up the void of space. Advanced missiles and high-energy beams slammed into the Venian ships, shredding through their shields like paper. The Conquest shuddered under the impact, sparks flying on the bridge. Zorth roared in rage and disbelief as his ships were torn apart by the unexpected onslaught. "Impossible. How could the humans have built such advanced weaponry without us knowing?" All ships fall back and regroup, but it was too late. The human fleet tore through the Venlayan lines like a pack of wolves among sheep. Dreadnoughts unleashed broadside after broadside, reducing the alien vessels to molten slag. Fighters and bombers swarmed the enemy, picking off targets with merciless precision. On Titan 17's surface, the human defenders cheered as they saw the Venlaxin troops retreating in disarray. Governor Adams emerged from the command center to see human drop ships descending, disgorging reinforcements and supplies across the galaxy. Reports flooded in of human attacks on Zarian and Carrion outposts, and fleets the once smug alien empires found themselves reeling, their dominance challenged by a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak on Earth. The president addressed the nation and the watching galaxy. For too long the Galactic Council species have oppressed and belittled humanity, but no more. Today we declare war against these arrogant empires. Our secret fleet is a secret no longer, and the galaxy will tremble at the fury of the human race. In his flagship's war room, Admiral Reeves received his new orders. The age of humanity had begun, and he would take the fight to the very heart of the alien empires. They would pay for their arrogance and learn to fear the wrath of Earth. Zorth, his fleet in tatters, could only watch in impotent rage as the humans celebrated their victory. The Venian High Command would demand answers for this debacle, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The human fleet tore through the void of space engines, screaming as they pushed toward the heart of Zorian territory. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, eyes fixed on the looming shape of Zorak Prime. The planet's surface was a web of metal shipyards and factories sprawling across its face. Dozens of half-built Zorian warships hung in orbit, skeletal frames waiting to be filled with weapons and armor. All ships prepare for assault. Reeves growled into the comm. Fighter squadrons launch on my mark. Marine transports begin boarding operations. Let's show these Zarian bastards what happens when they mess with humanity. Acknowledgements crackled through the comm as the fleet surged forward. The orbital defenses of Zorak Prime lit up, energy beams and missiles arcing through space to meet the human ships. But the human vessels were small and fast, darting nimbly through the barrage they wove between the lumbering Zorian battleships, pummeling them with concentrated fire. Explosions bloomed across the Zorian hulls as the human weapons found their marks. Armor melted and venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. The Zarian ships tried to turn and bring their guns to bear, but they were too slow, too clumsy. The human ships danced around them, picking them apart with ruthless efficiency. As the battle raged in orbit, human drop ships screamed toward the planet's surface. They dodged through clouds of flak and anti-air fire, their hulls glowing with the heat of re-entry. With a roar of retros, they slammed into the ground near the sprawling estates of the Zorak, and elite ramps slammed down, and human marines poured out encased in sleek black power armor. They charged forward, weapons spitting death. Zorian guards and automated defenses opened fire, but their shots glanced harmlessly off the Marines' advanced armor. The humans returned fire with devastating precision, advancing relentlessly over the bodies of their foes. And his palatial estate ambassador Karzak stared in disbelief at the security feeds he watched as human soldiers smashed through his gates, cutting down his guards with brutal efficiency. Karzak slammed a fist on his desk, teeth bared in a snarl. How dare they, he roared. How dare these primitive upstarts attack the heart of the Zarian Empire? All forces counterattack, drive them back. But it was too late. Across the planet, human troops were storming the shipyards and factories, capturing the half-built warships and turning them against their makers. In the lower levels of the cities, oppressed slave species were rising up, rallying around the human liberators. The once invincible Zorian war machine was faltering, crumbling under the relentless human assault. Karzak fled his estate, barely escaping onto a transport. As human soldiers stormed his office, he barked orders into the ship's comm, his voice shrill with rage and panic. All ships fall back to the Antares Nebula. We lure the humans in and crush them in the nebula's depths. They caught us off guard here, but we'll make them pay for their insolence in the chaos of orbital battle. Admiral Reeves saw the Zarian ships breaking away, fleeing toward the swirling clouds of the nearby nebula. He smiled grimly, recognizing the trap they were trying to set. It was the same nebula where his fleet had once eluded Krak's forces, but this time Reeves had a plan. All ships pursue the Zorian into the nebula, he ordered. Prepare to deploy the swarm. The human fleet plunged into the nebula's churning depths, sensors straining to penetrate the electromagnetic interference. Shapes loomed in the clouds, Zorian ships lying in wake. Krelzak's voice crackled over the comm, harsh with triumph. Now humans, you fell right into our trap. All ships opened fire. The Zarian vessels emerged from the nebula, swirling tendrils, weapons, blazing beams of energy and volleys of missiles arced toward the human fleet. Reeves smiled coldly. Deploy the swarm, he said. From the human ships, thousands of small spherical drones burst forth. They spread out into the nebula, each one no larger than a human fist. The Zorian sensors struggled to track them as they darted and wove through the clouds. Suddenly the Zorian ships began to fire wildly, their shots going wide. Their sensors were overwhelmed, confused by the swarm of drones. that filled the nebula, the human ship seized the advantage, picking off the blinded Zorian. With merciless precision, Cakesy's flagship shuddered under the impact of human weapons. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, crew members screaming as they were thrown to the deck. Kruzak roared in rage, trying desperately to retake control of his ship. But it was already too late. A human cruiser rammed into the side of the flagship, its AI guidance scrambled by the drones. The two ships tore into each other, metal sparking and shearing. Kruzak was thrown across the bridge, his body slamming into a bulkhead with bone-crushing force. He slumped to the deck, blood trickling from his mouth, eyes wide in shock and disbelief. All around, the Zorian fleet was in disarray, ships colliding and exploding as their sensors failed. Anguished screams filled the comm channels, the sounds of a proud race brought low the few surviving. Zorian ships limped away into the nebula, battered and broken. Admiral Reeves watched in grim satisfaction as the last of the enemy blips vanished from his screens. The Zorian counterattack had been utterly destroyed. Their own trap turned against them. The legend of human cunning and ferocity would spread through the galaxy. High Overseer Bashir paced in his opulent crystal palace throne room. The iridescent walls shimmered as he brushed past them, distorting his reflection into a kaleidoscope of color. He slammed a bead fist onto the ornate table, sending priceless artifacts clattering. Reports strewn across the surface painted a dire picture. Trade revenues plummeting, mining colonies destroyed, slave species slipping from his grasp, all because of the damnable humans and their upstart. Admiral Bashir summoned his advisors, a motley assortment of robed Calarian and menacing aliens from client races. They shuffled and heads bowed, sensing his black mood. That the humans, they chip away at our empire system by system. Slaves revolt in their wake. If we do not act decisively, all will be lost. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the advisors. Bashir raised a silencing hand. I have a plan. We shall strike at their leadership, sow chaos in their ranks. Most of all, we must eliminate the head of the snake. This Admiral Reeves, my lord, our conventional forces have proven inadequate against their fleet. How do you propose we achieve this? A tentacled advisor gurgled. Vasher's lips twisted in a cold smile. We will not use conventional forces. I have already dispatched envoys to gather the best hunters, killers, and sabbats from across the galaxy. They will be motivated by the promise of riches and the thrill of the hunt. He tapped a control on the table, bringing up a galactic map with cloaked ships and surgical strikes. We will keep the humans off balance. Assassination of key leaders will throw their offensive into disarray, and Reeves, his head shall be the jewel in my crown. As the underworld scum began their insidious missions, reports of human setbacks trickled in. A vice admiral found dead in his quarters, neck punctured with neurotoxin. A shipyard sabotaged, prototype vessels reduced to twisted wrecks. A strategic outpost gone dark, crew slaughtered to the last man on the bridge of his flagship. Admiral Reeves slammed a fist on his command console as another report came in. Captain Haruki Tanaka, a rising star in the ranks, had been eliminated. His ship had been crippled by a reactor meltdown triggered by a Calarian agent. Reeves had taken Tanaka under his wing, seeing him as a potential successor. Now he was space dust. Suddenly a klaxon blared. Admiral, proximity alert, starboard airlock. Reeves was already moving. Charging down the hallway with a squad of Marines, they arrived at the airlock to find a scene of carnage. Dead crewmen floated in a haze of blood, dismembered by some vicious creature. A Marine corporal wretched in his helmet. Reeves spotted the intruder. Spotted the insectoid bristling with barbs, venom dripping from its mandibles. It lunged at him with blinding speed, a spiked limb slashing toward his throat. Reeves caught the appendage in an armored fish servos, whining. The creature's exoskeleton crunched as he squeezed, ear oozing between his fingers. Its other limb stabbed toward his abdomen, a jagged stinger glistening with poison. Reeves twisted, taking the blow on his shoulder plate. He felt the ceramic crack, the venom hissing as it ate away at the armor. The creature chittered in rage, mandibles snapping millimeters from Reeves's faceplate. He gritted his teeth, servo-straining as he fought to keep those fangs at bay. The beast was strong, a perfect killing machine, but Reeves were stronger. With a final surge of exertion, he wrenched the insectoid's head 180 deg. It twitched and went limp, green ire spurting from its ruptured thorax. Reeves hurled the broken corpse away in disgust. His armor hissed and popped as it sealed the breach, neutralizing the remaining venom. The Admiral turned to his Marines, eyes hard as flint. This ends. Now plot a course for Keldar. We're going to pay the High Overseer a personal visit. Vasher shifted on his throne, the crystal seat uncomfortable, despite the opulent cushions. Perhaps it was the reports of his assassins going dark one after another, or the trails of refugees choking the hyperlanes. As his empire crumbled at the edges, a deep boom echoed through the palace. The towering doors of the throne room quivering. Bashir leapt to his feet, heart pounding. That sound, it was an explosion here in his sanctum. Impossible. The doors burst inward, smoke and debris billowing into the chamber. Vasher shielded his eyes, coughing. Through the haze, figures emerged, hulking shapes clad in scarred power armor, the muzzles of their weapons glowing red hot at their heads. A man Bashir had only seen in intercepted transmissions, and Bounty notices his armor was blackened and dented, still smoking from the battle outside. The mirror visor of his helmet betrayed no emotion as he approached the throne with purposeful strides. Admiral Reeves, Bashir hissed, fighting to keep the quaver from his voice. I must congratulate you on your tenacity. The overseer eyed the Marines fanning out to surround him, weapons trained on his vital organs. Surely we can come to an arrangement. I am a wealthy man. Name your price, and my riches are yours. Reeves' laughter was distorted by his helmet speakers transformed into a grating electronic rasp. You think we want your blood money, Xeno scum? We came to deliver justice. Bashir opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat as Reeves's armored boot crashed into his chest. The overseer slammed back onto his throne, crystal cracking beneath his spine. A microarc later, the barrel of Reeves's sidearm filled his vision. The last thing Bashir saw was his own terrified reflection in that mirrored visor before the world vanished in a flash of light, and Thunder Reeves holstered his gun, the overseer's headless corpse slumping in the throne. A Marine approached, Vasher's head dangling from his fist by the tangle of jeweled braids. Broadcast this on every frequency. Reeves growled, let the galaxy see what happens to those who cross us. As the transmission went out, Reeves could already hear the panicked chatter of Calarian officials as their empire dissolved around them. The Venian would not be far behind. Once they saw this grisly trophy, the Admiral allowed himself a tight smile beneath his helmet. The Calarian had been the hidden viper striking from the shadows. Now their head had been cut off, and the body would devour itself. It was time to bring the fight to the Venian and end their rule once and for all. High Commander Zorth smashed his fist onto the ornate ivory table, cracking its priceless surface. The room was packed with the grim faces of the Vinlaxan Empire's top leaders. Reports of Admiral Reeves's devastating attacks poured, in each one a fresh wound to Zor's pride. Human ships had shattered Venian outposts and seized vital resources across the Empire. The destruction of the Elysium shipyards was the deepest cut. Zor's claws dug into his palms as he read the latest intelligence. A sizable portion of the invasion fleet he had painstakingly gathered to conquer Earth had been annihilated before it could even launch, all because of Reeves and his damnable human warriors. The mood in the room was as bleak as the void of space, but Zorth had not clawed his way to power by conceding defeat. He knew this was his moment to reveal his trump card. He raised his voice over the worried chatter of the council. Centuries ago, our scientists uncovered an ancient alien weapon on the dead moon of Calth, a device of unimaginable power. It was deemed too dangerous and sealed away in a hidden vault. Zorth paused, his eyes glinting. But now, with our empire facing this unprecedented threat, I motioned to deploy this weapon and unleash its fury upon the humans. There were gasps and murmurs around the table. Such a weapon was the stuff of dark legends, but as Zorth met each counselor's gaze, he saw fear giving way to hard resolve. They knew as well as he did this was no time for half measures. The council voted swiftly and unanimously to approve Zor's plan. Deep within an ancient mountain vault, a team of Venian soldiers unsealed the ancient relic. Its ominous form was loaded with utmost care onto Zor's command ship. The Dreadnought was the pride of the fleet, a monstrous vessel bristling with the most advanced weapons the Empire could forge, and now it would serve as the instrument of humanity's destruction. Zorth sent a message to Admiral Reeves, his tea dripping with disdain. You have fought well, human, but your campaign ends here. I challenge you to a final battle at the edge of Velayan space. Come and meet your doom. Reeves, seeing a chance to cut the head off the Empire and end the war, in one stroke mobilized his ships immediately against the protests of Earth's leaders. It was a risk, but one he was born to take. The two armadas clashed at the appointed coordinates. The very fabric of space set ablaze by their weapons. Ships on both sides were torn asunder, reduced to clouds of shrapnel in the unforgiving void. Reeves's flagship traded brutal broadsides with Zor's dreadnought, the Venian ship absorbing staggering damage but refusing to yield. As the battle raged, Reeves saw the dreadnought's hull begin to emanate a sinister crimson glow. The alien weapon was charging up. Reeves' blood ran cold as he realized the stakes. If that doomsday device fired, it would vapor half his fleet in a heartbeat. There was no time for finesse. Reeves barked orders to his crew, his voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. All ships focus fire on the dreadnought shields. We need to breach its defenses. As his fleet pounded the Venian shields with everything they had, Reeves yanked the controls of his cruiser, setting a course straight for the pulsing heart of the dread. Zorth watched in disbelief as the human admiral came surging through his failing shy fields on a kamikaze run. Reeves pushed his engines to their limits, gritting his teeth against the G-forces, slamming him back into his seat. With a bone-jarring impact, his cruiser plowed directly into the doomsday weapons housing. For a moment, all was silent. Then a blinding flash erupted.